The October dusk draped Denver in a golden haze. The skyline glowing like embers as Ailen, 29, stood in her cramped apartment, slipping into a navy dress that clung softly to her frame. The dress wasn't flashy, but it was deliberate, a quiet declaration of effort for her birthday dinner. Her black heels pinched her toes, scuffed from too many walks across Lodo's uneven sidewalks. But she wore them anyway. Birthdays were for showing up, even if you weren't sure anyone else would. She glanced at her phone, 6:15 p.m., and smoothed her hair, catching her reflection in the smudged mirror by the door. Her brown eyes held a flicker of hope, fragile but stubborn, like the last leaf on a winter branch. She'd reserved a table for 6 at the Copper Fork, a cozy bistro downtown where fairy lights twinkled against exposed brick walls and soft jazz curled through the air. She'd texted the details to her family, her mother, Diane, her sister, Harper, her brother, Ethan, and cousins Marcus and Lila, who'd sworn they'd make it this time. No RSVPs, but Ailen wasn't worried. They'd show. They always did. Eventually, even if it was just to borrow something or ask for a favor. She grabbed her purse, a worn leather thing she'd bought at a thrift shop on Colfax, and headed out, the chill biting her bare arms as she stepped into the evening. She arrived at 6:28, early as always, a habit carved from years of waiting for Diane to decide what mattered. The hostess, a woman with a nose ring and a practiced smile, checked her tablet. Party of 6, Ailen? Ailen nodded, smoothing the napkin in her lap as she was led to a table by the window. 6 place settings gleamed under a single candle's flicker, the flame dancing like it knew her secrets. They're just running late, she told the waiter, Tyler, a lanky guy with a faded Broncos tattoo peeking from his sleeve. He offered to start with drinks. I'll wait, she said, her voice sharper than she meant, like she was trying to convince herself. By 7 o'clock, the restaurant hummed, couples laughing over charcuterie boards, a proposal unfolding 2 tables over with a shy, yes, and scattered applause. Ailen's phone stayed dark. No texts, no calls. She adjusted her fork, then her knife, a nervous tick she'd had since she was a kid waiting for Diane to pick her up from soccer practice. Harper was probably stuck in rush hour traffic on I-25. She told herself. Ethan, lost in a Call of Duty marathon, his thumbs glued to a controller. Diane? She was never early unless it was for someone else's spotlight, charity galas. Harper's book club brunches. At 7:15, Tyler returned, his eyes kind but probing. Still waiting? Ailen forced a smile, her lips tight. Just a bit longer. At 7:30, the candle was half melted, its wax pooling like her fading hope. She scrolled her phone, a work email about a Q4 deadline. A Target sale for throw pillows she didn't need. Then it buzzed. A text from Diane. You're not our priority tonight. Have a nice dinner. 11 words, cold as the wind rattling the window. Ailen reread them, her chest tightening like someone had turned a screw. Then Tyler reappeared, holding a small box wrapped in matte silver. Harper's minimalist style. From your family, he said. Dropped off earlier. Her smile was a mask. Practiced for strangers. She peeled back the paper, revealing a pale gray silk scarf, the one she bought Diane for Mother's Day at a low-do boutique. Snagged corner and all from Diane's ring catching it during Easter brunch. The card read, Happy birthday. From all of us. Beneath it, her own faded handwriting. Love you, Mom. Always. Ailen. Her breath hitched, but her hands stayed steady. Laughter spilled from the bar. Glasses clinked. The jazz swelled. The world spun on, but hers had stopped. She opened her banking app, her eyes catching a pending transaction labeled Property Escrow for the house she'd helped Diane keep after Dad's death. She dismissed it, too raw to think. Then she saw it. $1.200 transferred to Ethan last Monday. He'd called, voice cracking, begging for car repairs. I'm screwed. Ailen, please. She'd sent it without question. Her savings account wincing. She pulled a sticky note from her purse, meant for a grocery list, and wrote in sharp strokes, Thank you. No seats left. She slipped a $20 bill under her plate, more than enough for the untouched Pinot Grigio, and walked out. The hostess called after her. But Ailen didn't turn back. The Denver night bit at her skin. The skyline now a mosaic of neon and shadow. Her apartment smelled of coffee and anticipation when she returned. She tossed the sticky note beside an empty fruit bowl, kicked off her heels, and sank onto the couch, the springs creaking under her weight. Her phone buzzed. An Instagram notification. Against her better judgment, she clicked. Harper's post loaded. Diane, Harper, Ethan, Marcus, and Lila, grinning outside the rusty Anchor. A trendy Boulder gastropub. Champagne flutes gleamed. Ethan front and center. A new smartwatch glinting on his wrist. The one he'd texted her about, saying it was too pricey, at $800. Diane wore the scarf, its snag catching the light. The caption, to Ethan, chasing his dreams. Ailen's stomach churned. They'd used her money to toast her absence. She opened her laptop, created a document, unreturned favors, and listed it. $1,200 for Ethan's repairs. $2,500 for Diane's car loan. $4,800 for Harper's wedding deposit. $700 for Ethan's phone bill. No repayments. No thanks. She whispered to the dark. This is what they chose. And for the first time, she felt not abandoned, but awake. 3 nights later, a knock sliced through Ailen's apartment at 7:42 p.m. Sharp and unapologetic. Like a demand for entry. She froze, barefoot on the hardwood, the city's hum seeping through her cracked window. She knew that knock, Diane's. The kind that didn't ask permission. Ailen smoothed her faded sweatshirt, a relic from a college road trip to Estes Park, and opened the door. Diane stood there, clutching a pastel Walgreens gift bag. Tissue paper fluffed like a last-minute apology. Her face was taut, lips pressed into a line. Eyes carrying the weight of a woman who'd spent years curating the family's image since Ailen's dad died, leaving her to uphold his legacy as the perfect Jennings matriarch. Thought we could talk, Diane said, her voice clipped. Like adults. Ailen didn't offer a seat. Diane walked in anyway, perching on the couch's edge like it might ruin her pressed slacks. The air smelled faintly of Diane's floral perfume. The same one she'd worn to every PTA meeting and church fundraiser. We thought you needed space. Diane began, her words rehearsed, like she'd practiced them in the car. Things got complicated after your dinner. Ailen's jaw tightened. Complicated, she said, each word a blade. You mean using my $1,200 to throw Ethan a party while I sat alone at a table for 6? Diane's mouth twitched, but she pressed on, her voice sharpening. You're too sensitive, Ailen, always making it about you. Ailen remembered the Christmas when Diane asked her to help in the kitchen during family photos, only to emerge with a tray of roasted carrots and find everyone gone. The tree lights dimmed. She'd swallowed it then, chalking it up to Diane's need to shine, to prove she could hold the family together after Dad's death. But not now. No, Ailen said, her voice calm but ironclad. I just stopped lying for you. Diane's fingers gripped the gift bag, her smile cracking like cheap glass. I didn't come to apologize, she said, leaning back, her posture defensive. I just don't want people thinking we abandoned you. Ailen almost laughed, the sound catching in her throat. Optics, not guilt. Diane had always cared more about the neighborhood's whispers, Mrs. Larson's book club, the church ladies' brunches, than her daughter's heart. Ailen walked to the kitchen, dropped the gift bag into the trash with a soft thud, not anger, but finality. Diane froze, her eyes widening like she'd been slapped. Ailen pulled a single sheet from a drawer, a ledger she'd typed the night after her birthday. $2,500 for Diane's car loan when her credit tanked. $4,800 for Harper's wedding venue when her fiancé bailed. $700 for Ethan's phone bill after he forgot to pay. $1,200 for his repairs. 5 years of her savings bled dry. She handed it to Diane. This is who you've been talking about behind my back. Tell them I stopped paying to be invisible. Diane's fingers trembled as she scanned the page, her face blank but her eyes darting. Betrayed by the truth. She stood, smoothed her coat like armor, and muttered, "You'll regret this when you're alone." Ailen closed the door behind her, the lock clicking like a vow. She pressed her forehead against the wood, the grain cool against her skin. "I've been alone," she whispered. "This time, it's my choice." Outside, a siren wailed down Colfax, and the city's pulse felt like her own, steady, alive, unapologetic. Morning crept in, sunlight slipping through Ailen's half-open blinds, striping her living room floor like a promise. The sting of her empty birthday table lingered, a bruise she could still feel when she pressed it. She didn't reach for her phone, didn't check for apologies that wouldn't come. Instead, she brewed coffee, the bold roast she hid from guests, and opened her laptop. She created a folder, "Closure is mine," and a document, "What I owe myself." She typed, "Lesson 1. You don't have to earn a seat at your own table." She thought of the moments she'd erased herself. Thanksgiving's washing dishes while Harper posed for Instagram in a red velvet dress. Ethan's hospital bill she'd paid when his insurance lapsed after a bar fight. The Aspen trip where she covered half the Airbnb but was left out of the group chat planning the ski days. Each was a brick in a wall she'd built to keep them close, hoping they'd see her. Now, she was tearing it down, brick by brick, her fingers dusty with the effort. That afternoon, she drove to Willow Creek Care Home, a low brick building on Denver's outskirts where the air smelled of antiseptic and lavender. She carried a store-bought chocolate cake, its plastic lid fogged with condensation, and her dad's worn copy of All the Pretty Horses, its spine cracked from his late-night readings. Evelyn, 82, sat by a window in the common room, flipping through a picture-heavy magazine about coastal getaways. Her eyes crinkled as Ailen approached, her silver braid catching the light. "Bringing your own party?" Evelyn teased, her voice warm as a quilt. "Happy belated birthday," Ailen said, holding up the cake, a single candle taped to the lid. They shared a slice, the frosting too sweet, the coffee too bitter from a communal pot left on too long. Ailen lit the candle, its flame flickering like the one at her birthday. But this time it felt like hope, not loneliness. They didn't sing, didn't make wishes aloud. They just sat, the late afternoon light turning the room gold, the silence between them soft and safe. "I never had a daughter," Evelyn said, leaning back, her hands folded over the magazine. "But I'd want one like you. Stubborn, not soft, the kind who pulls up her own chair and sits." Ailen's throat tightened, not with tears, but with recognition. She thought of the times she'd stood in the background, Harper's engagement party where she'd swept confetti at 2 a.m. Diane's charity gala where Ailen's anonymous donation funded the open bar but Diane took the stage in pearls, basking in applause. "If I'd had a mother like you," Ailen said, "I wouldn't have spent years begging for a seat." They didn't cry, they just sat, the candles glow warming the space between them. Ailen felt seen, not as a wallet or a fixer, but as herself, raw, real, enough. Back home, she faced her photo wall, a collage of family moments she'd hung to feel tethered. Harper's engagement party, where she'd paid for the catering and cleaned up alone. Ethan's baby shower, where she'd covered the venue deposit. Diane's gala, where Ailen's name didn't make the program. She took them down, the frames clinking into a trash bag like loose change. All but one, her and her dad, laughing on a lake dock, fishing rods in hand, summer light in their hair. She taped it inside her closet, behind the door, where no one could rewrite it. Monday arrived with a gray sky and a breeze that carried winter's first whisper. Ailen sat at her kitchen table, the wood scarred from years of coffee mugs and late-night budgets. She opened her laptop to check the mortgage account she'd shared with Diane since her dad's death, expecting only to confirm a payment. But a new document stopped her cold, a revised deed for the family home in Lakewood. Her name, co-owner for 3 years, was gone. Diane and Ethan were listed, her signature forged in tidy ink. The property escrow transaction from her birthday night wasn't a glitch, it was betrayal. She called the county clerk, her voice steady despite the tremor in her chest. After 10 minutes of hold music, some tinny rendition of Sweet Caroline, a clerk confirmed, Ailen M. Jennings' signature is here. But no ID attached. Ailen's response was flat. That's not mine. The clerk's tone shifted. Cautious. You'll need a property attorney if you suspect fraud. Ailen hung up, the word fraud ringing like a cracked bell. Diane had always seen the house as her legacy. A monument to the Jennings name she'd polished since Dad's death. Ethan, the youngest, the golden child, was her chosen heir. Ailen was just collateral. Her contributions, $10 toward the mortgage. Unacknowledged, erased like chalk. She emailed a real estate attorney recommended by a coworker, attaching the deed, bank records, and a timeline of her payments. The decision felt like pulling a splinter, sharp but clean. She created a folder, pattern, and added screenshots. Diane's gala speech claiming the family's heart. Posted on the community center's Facebook page. Harper's group chat message suggesting Ailen skip Christmas to keep the mood light. Ethan's Instagram post from her birthday. His watch glinting. Proof. Not for them, but for her. A ledger of her own truth. Days later, Diane's voicemail came. Her voice brittle as dry leaves. You're breaking this family. Ailen, the mortgage is overdue because of you. Ailen deleted it mid-sentence, forwarding it to her attorney with a note. Do not engage. She canceled Diane's grocery delivery linked to her Target Red Card. Shut off autopay for their shared Netflix, Hulu, and cloud storage accounts. And unlinked her name from every digital thread tying her to them. Each click was a snip. A weight lifted. The attorney's email arrived that evening. Title removal processed. Your name is clear. No ceremony. Just freedom. But the freedom wasn't clean yet. A memory surfaced. 2 years ago. Diane had borrowed $3 for home repairs, promising to repay. Ailen had driven to Lakewood that weekend, canceling a hiking trip with friends to help Diane patch a leaky roof. Diane had hugged her, called her the glue. The money never came back. And the roof job was shoddy. Done by one of Ethan's buddies. Ailen added it to unreturned favors. $3. No receipt. No gratitude. She leaned back, the chair creaking, and stared at the ceiling. The betrayal wasn't just the house. It was the myth she'd bought into. That family meant sacrifice. That love meant emptying herself. Friday night settled over Denver. The air crisp with the first hint of winter. Creeping through Ailen's open balcony door. She sat cross-legged on her couch. A thrift store blanket draped over her shoulders. The city's neon glow painting her bare feet. The family group chat, now renamed Family Unity SOS, buzzed with blame. You knew the mortgage was due. Ailen, Harper, always the peacemaker with an edge of envy, added, family doesn't abandon. But you're making it hard. Ailen didn't reply. She'd spent years absorbing their guilt, bending to their needs. Harper's jealousy over Ailen's reliability. Ethan's entitlement as the baby of the family. Diane's obsession with appearances. This wasn't abandonment. It was preservation. She opened What I Owe Myself and typed. Lesson 2. Freedom is choosing where you stay. She wasn't running. She was building. She searched for flights. Portland's misty bookstores. Austin's sweaty music venues. Santa Fe's quiet deserts. Each click was a promise to herself. A map to a life she'd define. In her dad's copy of All the Pretty Horses, tucked between pages worn soft by his hands, she found a note. You give without asking. Kiddo, that's strength. Don't let it become a burden. The words echoed Evelyn's warmth. The candles glow from the care home. Ailen pressed the note to her chest. Her eyes stinging, not with sadness, but with clarity. She wasn't just her dad's daughter anymore. She was herself, whole. She walked to her closet, where the photo of her and her dad hung, taped to the doors inside. His hand rested on her shoulder. Their laughter frozen in summer light. Fishing rods dangling over a lake dock. It wasn't just proof she'd been loved. It was proof she was enough. She grabbed a sticky note and wrote, You taught me how to hold. She pressed it beside the photo, smoothing the edges. The act felt like a ritual, a reclaiming. That night, she dreamed of the lake dock. Her dad's voice low and steady. You don't need their permission to shine. Kiddo. She woke with a start. The pre-dawn light gray and soft. For the first time, The silence in her apartment didn't feel like a void, it felt like space. Hers to fill. She brewed coffee, the bold roast filling the air, and opened her laptop. She added to what I owe myself. Lesson 3. Your story doesn't belong to those who erase you. She wasn't writing for them anymore. She was writing for herself. Sunday morning broke over Denver. The skyline glittering like a promise kept. Ailen stood at her window. Coffee mug warm in her hands. The city waking below. Her phone buzzed. Another group chat message. This time from Ethan. Mom's freaking out. The bank's calling. You knew this would happen. Ailen didn't open the thread. She forwarded it to her attorney. Subject line. Do not engage. She'd spent years carrying their crises. Harper's wedding meltdown when her caterer quit. Ethan's bar fight that landed him in the Diane's endless emergencies that always needed Ailen's card. No more. She opened a new document. To anyone erased. And typed. You are not their story. Write your own. She thought of the moments she'd been cropped out. Thanksgiving photos where she was behind the camera. Harper's wedding where she was seated next to a caterer's intern. Diane's gala where her donation was a footnote. She thought of Evelyn's crinkled smile. Her dad's note. The candle that burned for her alone. She wasn't disappearing. She was arriving. Ailen's story is for anyone who's felt like a ghost in their own life. She stood at her balcony. The wind carrying the scent of pine from the Rockies, and whispered. Your worth isn't who shows up, it's how you show up for yourself. She closed her laptop, grabbed her dad's book, and headed to her car. The drive to Boulder was quiet. The chocolate cake on the passenger seat a small rebellion. At Willow Creek, she found Evelyn by the window. A new magazine in her lap. Back for round 2? Evelyn asked, grinning. They shared the cake. No candle this time. Just laughter. You're building something, Evelyn said, her voice steady. Don't let anyone tear it down. Ailen nodded, her heart full. Back home, she booked a flight to Portland, not to escape, but to arrive. She packed light, her dad's book, a notebook for what I owe myself, and the photo from the lake dock. The rest could stay behind. To anyone who's ever waited at an empty table, when did you choose yourself over someone else's expectations? Share your city, your moment, your truth in the comments. Drop a 1 if this hit home. Or tell me why it didn't. I didn't just leave their table, I built my own. And you can too. Subscribe for more stories of breaking free, of finding your voice, of claiming your light.